Hey everyone, welcome back to another video in Java programming series in 2025. And in this video, we'll be talking about control flow statements using if else in Java. Let's go ahead and see what exactly control flow is. All right, so in any programming language, whenever you want to make certain decision, you have to evaluate certain expression. Let's say you are trying to make an application where a person is eligible to vote or not. Let's say in any country, the voting age is 18. So you have to decide whether that person is 18 years old or not. If let's say he is 18 years, then he will be allowed to vote. Otherwise, he will not be. Whenever we want to make certain decisions, let's say there is a game which is only allowed for certain genders or people from certain area, right? You have to check whether that person's age is uh, in that specified area. Then you can execute certain uh, program, and then you can make decision based on that. So we'll be talking about, let's see this simple flow diagram. Imagine this is a form, so just like Facebook, where it's a form that user enters some data, and then we are going to evaluate whether that username is already taken or not, right? Because let's talk about Instagram, because when the user enters the username that has already been used by someone else, right? Then this is not going to be valid because it has to be unique, right? Let's say user entered unique. I'm going to be checking, well, if user has entered the correct username, that means the unique username, I'm going to be processing, I'm going to register him, right? Otherwise, I'm going to say, well, the username is already taken, so that means the else branch, and I'm going to be saying, well, the username is already taken and we cannot proceed. You have to change your username and possibly show the suggested username, right? So here this if branch will be executed whenever this evaluate condition is true. Otherwise, this is going to be else, and then this is going to be and, right? So this is user input and then certain expressions and then if else. And just to make a note, we can have multiple if statement and multiple else statement. Actually, we cannot have multiple else, but we can use else ifs, which I will show you in the code few seconds later. So let's go ahead and see how can we create such conditions. And I'm going to be just mimicking some real scenarios so that we can understand. All right, so first of all, I'm going to create a file. So in the last video I also created a Java compact file that eliminates the code to write class and public static and things like that. So I'm just going to say it control flow. So yeah, with control flow, you don't need to write a class and public static void main. It's a feature of Java 25. So if you haven't watched my previous videos, please go ahead and watch and see how to create this. All right, so we will be writing control flow statements, right? Because as of now, we know how to assign variables. So I'm going to be like creating a integer variable called age, and let's say someone is 17 years old, and then I'm going to be deciding whether the user is eligible to vote or not, right? So, and I'm also going to say another variable. So instead of writing value directly, eligible age and then to vote equals, let's say, 80, right? So pay attention to how am I writing the variable name, because really good variable name is important whenever you are writing a code. So eligible age to vote is 18, right? Or you can say minimum age to vote is 18, but it has to be meaningful. So based on this condition, I'm going to be checking, well, if age is greater or equivalent. So because the age has to be at least 18 or more, right? Then I'm going to be saying, well, yeah, you can vote, right? So otherwise, I'm going to say no, right? So let's say if age this age is greater but also equal, right? So this is operator. So this is greater and this is equal. So that means it does not have to be equal, but it can all does not have to be greater. It can also be equal, right? So and eligible is to vote. That means so if I'm saying yes, of course, because we hard coded, so the idea is giving us suggestion, but whenever you are getting dynamic value, it won't be the case. Just ignore that. And for example, I'm going to be saying io.println user is eligible to put. Okay, so at this condition, the user is eligible to put. If I run it, you can right click and run. If A is eligible to vote, well, it is not because it's 17. Let me change it to 18. You can run it from here or here. So and user is eligible to vote. Why? Because user age is now 18, right? So let's say if I make 19, it's also eligible because this condition is satisfied. But whenever I change it to, let's say, 16, it won't be printed because this block is not executed. That means this block, now imagine this block, green block is only executed when the age is greater or equal to 18, right? But we haven't got this. So what I can say, we can have multiple A's, right? So for example, let's say if age is greater, but you are eligible, but I want to say when someone is over 70, I want to say the older people will get some facilities, right? Or let's say, they don't have to stay in queue or something like that. So they are, of course, eligible. This is going to be common. And I'm going to be having if inside if. And we can perfectly have if statement inside if. All right. So if A is greater than, let's say, greater than or equal to 70, and then I'm gonna be doing println elderly people can escape the queue. All right, you can say, for example, the line, right? They can directly access it. So let's say since I am eligible to vote, for example, at 90, I'm eligible to vote. All right, but I'm not eligible to get this facility. All right, so if I change it to, let's say, 79, that is greater than 70, so this is going to be two print statement, let's say. So elderly people can escape the queue, right? This is called if inside if, and also called nested if, right? In academic term or programming term, we call it nested if. All right, if inside if. Well, let's say now we want to add else statement. So what if the user is not? Because as of now, so when I change it to, let's say, just 09, just 9, right? We don't get any message. We don't know what exactly happened. So whenever I want to say else, so whenever I want to see that this condition doesn't match, okay, this condition doesn't match, this condition doesn't match, I want to print something. So I'm going to be saying, sorry, you are not eligible to vote. All right. Right. Sorry, you are not eligible to vote. And I can say less than 18 years old. Okay. So now we will get a perfect masses, right? So this is pretty intuitive. All right. So but at the same time, sometimes we can also, let's say it's a 70, right? But sometimes, you can also check whether particular person is between a certain age. Let's say age is greater than 70, but I'm also going to be doing age is less than or equal to 80. That means it has to be a Boolean expression. So what am I saying is is greater or equal to 70 and less than 80 can skip the queue. But I'm gonna be like, let's say the government is going to give some facility, extra facility for some people above, let's say 80. Okay, let's say 80, and then so in this case they are going to be get, for example, online voting facility or something like that. May not make sense, but or the representative will come to your house. Okay, so let's say the representative will go whenever someone is more than 80 years old, right? So you can say 80. All right, so we can also say else if, right? And here. Okay, representative. So for example, I'm going to be saying 79, and then we will only see elderly in. Now, if I make it 89, for example, all right, the representative will come to your house, right? This statement is executed. And if you want to catch everything else, right? Of course, here it's not going to be printed because everything will be caught here. But if you want something, you can also write else statement. So that means the else if, you can have multiple else if, right? For example, you can have else if something. For example, now I'm going to be true, and I'm also going to be writing else. But if I write another else, there is a problem, right? Because I cannot have multiple else statements, right? Else without if, right? Because now I cannot write. The else catches everything that is not caught by the above statements, and it has to be like the last statement. All right, so this is outer else. You can have multiple else inside, one inside if, and then another else, and then one outside, right? So look at this is greater than eligible vote has to be a boolean expression. So you can say boolean is eligible and then equals to is greater or equal to eligible to vote. And then instead of writing here this whole expression, I'm going to be writing it's eligible, right? And if I run it, so that this is the same message as before. So you cannot write something like hello, right? So you cannot write. Why? This is valid in other programming languages like JavaScript. As long as it's not null, the JavaScript going to evaluate this as a true. But in Java, it has to be strictly Boolean expression, right? So just make sure that you write a Boolean expression here if you are coming from any other programming language. And so the another thing is we also learned about this AND operator, and I explained in the last video that AND operator, it means everything must be true, right? This has to be greater than 70 but also has to be less than 80, right? Now 80, less than 80, let's say 70 and 79. So this statement is going to be true. The elderly people can skip the queue. But as soon as I cross 80, so it's not going to be true, right? So even the 80 is not going to be true, right? Because now this is not going to be true. But let's say if you change it to or means it can be true whenever one of the values is true, right? Now it's greater than 70, so it's going to be executed. Okay, so the elderly people can skip the queue or line. That's the difference in between and an or operator. So if you are still confused, you can watch my last video. All right, so and also in the beginner, that the basic mistake that beginners make is, so whenever they are comparing something, let's say I'm gonna be checking if a is equal 1 or S out, and then I'm going to be writing too young, right? So too young. That means whenever is, many people make it mistake like this, right? They write single operator, single equal. So in mathematics, we write single operator, but in programming, we have to write double. That means equal, right? If you want to say not equal, you have to say not, right? This not, and exclamation and equals, all right, and not. If you want to say greater or equal, you have to say greater sign and then equal, right? All right, so that was it for this video. So I hope it makes sense, and just practice a couple of things that comes into your mind, right? It does not have to be, for example, I talked about that Instagram example. You can uh, define something like a string and then username equals to abc dot abc. Okay, so imagine this username exists in Instagram, and if someone is trying to say trying to give new username, new and then username equals to again abc, you can check if new username dot equals and then username, you can say s out, username is already taken, right? In this case, otherwise s out registered. Okay, register. For example, now it should be username is already taken, right? Username is already taken. Look at this, and if I change it to CTE, for example, and it is going to be printed as registered because that no longer matches, right? So you can play with string as well, something that we have already covered. So that was pretty much it for this if else, and in the next video we'll be talking about ternary operator that can also be used as alternative to if else, and that can shorten, so we will see how to write the same equivalent of if else using ternary operators. So if you have any questions, just comment down, otherwise I will see you in the next video, and thanks for watching.